Alchemy, the hidden art associated with a land once called Chem, stands among the two most ancient sciences known to humanity, the other being astrology. Both traditions trace their beginnings into the indistinct depths of prehistoric ages. Early surviving accounts describe alchemy and astrology as divine revelations granted to humankind, intended to assist in restoring a lost, original state of being. Ancient traditions preserved by rabbinical sources tell that an angel stationed at the entrance of Eden instructed Adam in the secrets of sacred wisdom, including the teachings of Kabbalah and alchemy, with a promise that once humanity fully understood the concealed knowledge within these arts, the burden of the forbidden fruit would be lifted and access to the divine garden restored. As humanity assumed physical form, symbolized as coats of skins, these sacred sciences were likewise carried into the material world, embodied in dense forms through which their higher spiritual essence could no longer be fully expressed. In this way, they came to be regarded as lost or dormant. In its earthly expression, alchemy has become what is now called chemistry. Yet practitioners of chemistry often fail to recognize that a portion of sacred wisdom remains veiled, symbolically hidden behind the mysteries associated with Isis, and that a purely material study can reveal only part of a greater truth. In a similar transformation, astrology has taken form as astronomy, whose adherents frequently dismiss the insights of ancient sages, interpreting their symbolic systems as mere superstition. Even so, the intellectual achievements of the modern age do not grant passage beyond the boundary separating the visible from the invisible. Such passage remains accessible only through the path of the mysteries. Fundamental questions persist. What is life? What is intelligence? What is force? These were the inquiries to which ancient centers of learning were devoted. It cannot be assumed that these questions went unanswered, yet even if answers were presented, it is uncertain who would recognize them. It remains possible that within the symbolic language of alchemy and astrology lies a depth of wisdom so profound that it exceeds the interpretive capacity of the present human mind. Among early civilizations, including the Chaldeans, Phoenicians, Babylonians, and various Eastern cultures, the principles of alchemy were well known. The tradition was also practiced in Greece and Rome, and held a place of highest importance in Egypt. The name Chem itself reflects this heritage, as both alchemy and chemistry preserve a linguistic connection to Egypt's early scientific knowledge. Fragmentary writings from these cultures suggest that alchemy was not regarded as mere speculation, but as a practical and reliable discipline. The belief in the transformation and multiplication of metals was held with conviction, and repeated affirmations of such ideas invite thoughtful consideration rather than dismissal. Some thinkers interpret the development of sciences as a gradual progression arising from human intellect, while others view them as direct transmissions of divine origin. Various explanations have been proposed regarding the beginnings of alchemy. One enduring account attributes its origin to a mysterious Egyptian figure known as Hermes Trismegistus. This exalted being, emerging from the obscurity of ancient time and associated with the legendary emerald, is credited as the source of all arts and sciences. In recognition of this attribution, the body of esoteric knowledge became known collectively as the Hermetic arts. According to tradition, when Hermes was laid to rest in a valley identified with Hebron, the sacred emerald was buried alongside him. Long afterward, it was rediscovered. Some accounts claim by an Arabian initiate, while others attribute the discovery to Alexander of Macedon. The emerald was said to bear a series of inscriptions attributed to Hermes, comprising 13 statements of profound significance. Through the power associated with this artifact, Alexander is said to have achieved dominion over the known world. Yet, despite such outward success, he failed to attain mastery over himself. His fate ultimately fulfilled ancient prophecies, and he fell at the height of his triumph. Some traditions suggest that he possessed advanced knowledge, but was unable to resist the temptations that accompanied power. E. Y. Keneally, drawing from the Cosmodromium attributed to Dr. Gobelin Persona, recounts a remarkable episode concerning Alexander of Macedon and the so-called talking trees, said to have occurred during his campaign in India. According to this account, Alexander advanced through regions filled with danger, at times crossing mountain heights, and at others passing through shadowed valleys where his forces were beset by serpents and wild beasts. After a journey lasting 300 days, he arrived at a mountain of extraordinary beauty, its slopes adorned with chains or cords of gold. The ascent to its summit was formed by 2,050 steps composed of pure sapphire, and near this place Alexander established his encampment. On a certain day, accompanied by 12 princes, he climbed these steps and reached the summit, where stood a palace of marvelous design. It possessed 12 gates and 70 windows, all fashioned from the finest gold, and was known as the Palace of the Sun. Within it stood a temple entirely of gold, before whose entrance grew vine-like trees bearing clusters resembling precious stones and pearls. Entering this place, Alexander and his companions encountered a man lying upon a golden couch, dignified in bearing and striking in appearance, with hair and beard white as snow. The king and his princes bowed before this figure, who addressed him, declaring that he would witness what no mortal had previously seen or heard. When Alexander questioned how he was recognized, the figure replied that his deeds had been known even before the great flood covered the earth. The figure then offered to reveal the sacred trees of the sun and moon, which were said to foretell all future events. Alexander expressed his desire to behold them, and a guide instructed him to remove his ornaments and shoes before proceeding. Obeying these instructions, Alexander selected 3 of his princes to accompany him, leaving the others behind, and followed the guide to the place where the trees stood. The tree of the sun bore leaves of red gold, while the tree of the moon carried leaves of silver, both immense in size. At the suggestion of the guide, Alexander asked whether he would return in triumph to Macedon. The answer given was negative. Instead, he was told that he would live for another year and 8 months, after which he would die by means of a poisoned cup. When he sought to know who would administer the poison, no answer was given. The tree of the moon further declared that his mother would suffer a tragic fate and remain unburied for a long time, while happiness was foretold for his sisters. It is likely that these so-called talking trees were not literal beings but rather devices, perhaps wooden tablets marked with letters, used for the purpose of divination. In earlier times, writings inscribed upon wood were sometimes referred to as talking trees. The challenge of determining the true origin of alchemy may arise from overlooking traditions concerning the lost continent of Atlantis. According to certain accounts, the Great Arcanum was among the most valued secrets held by the priesthood of that civilization. When Atlantis was said to have sunk, initiates of the fire mystery carried this knowledge to Egypt, where it remained for many centuries under the guardianship of sages and philosophers, later spreading into Europe, where elements of it are believed to persist. Those who do not accept the account of Hermes and the Emerald Tablet sometimes attribute the beginnings of alchemy to the 200 angels described in the writings associated with Enoch, regarding them as the earliest instructors in this art. Regardless of its true source, the preservation of alchemy is credited largely to the priests of Egypt. The land itself, known for the dark color of its soil, was called the Black Empire and was described in ancient writings as a land of darkness. From this association, alchemy came to be known as the Black Art, not in a negative sense, but in reference to the obscurity and secrecy that have always surrounded its practices. During the Middle Ages, alchemy functioned not only as a science and philosophy, but also as a form of religious expression. Those who resisted the strict doctrines of their time often concealed their deeper teachings within the symbolic language of transmuting metals. In doing so, they safeguarded their freedom, attracting ridicule rather than persecution. Alchemy is understood as a threefold discipline, often represented by the symbol of a triangle. Its principle is expressed as 3 times 3, indicating 3 processes or elements operating within 3 distinct realms. This pattern reflects a broader symbolic system in which the number 33 is reduced to 9, a number associated with the inner nature of humanity and with emanations from a divine source. It is also linked to the worlds sustained by the 4 rivers flowing from the creative word. Beneath its symbolic imagery, alchemy preserves a profound teaching, maintaining what is described as a triple key to the gates of eternal life. Recognized as a mystery unfolding across the divine, human, and elemental planes, it becomes clear why its practitioners developed elaborate allegories to veil and protect its deeper meaning. Alchemy is described as the science of multiplication, founded upon the natural principle of growth. The ancient saying that nothing arises from nothing expresses this idea clearly. Alchemy does not attempt to create something out of nothing. Rather, it seeks to increase, refine, and perfect what already exists. If it were claimed that a living man could be formed from a stone, the uninformed might dismiss such a statement as impossible, thereby revealing a lack of understanding, for it is held by the wise that within every stone lies the seed of man. In the same way, the suggestion that a universe could arise from a man may seem absurd to the unthinking, yet it is taught that a human being is itself a seed from which a universe may unfold. The divine is understood as both the inner and outer essence of all things. The supreme manifests through growth, which is an impulse moving from within outward, a striving toward expression and realization. The multiplication of gold in alchemy is no greater wonder than the growth of a small seed into a plant vastly larger than its origin. If a seed planted in the earth can produce a form many thousands of times greater than itself, it follows that the seed of gold, placed within its proper medium and nourished through art, may likewise be multiplied. According to this teaching, the divine exists within everything as a single universal presence expressing itself through countless forms. This presence is likened to a spiritual seed planted within the substance of the material world. Through art, this seed may be cultivated until all substance is transformed into its likeness, symbolized as pure gold. In human terms, this process is called regeneration. In the realm of matter, it is known as transmutation. The same principle extends into the intellectual domain. Wisdom cannot be given where its seed is entirely absent, yet it can be developed wherever that seed exists, even in those who appear ignorant. Thus, a philosopher is understood as one in whom this inner potential has been awakened and brought into expression. Through the discipline of learning, the crude substance of ignorance may be transformed into wisdom, just as base metals are said to become gold. If through devotion and closeness to the divine, the human consciousness can be elevated from lower desires into a purified and enlightened state, and if the inner spark of the divine can grow into a radiant presence, then it follows that similar transformation may occur on other levels. If both the spiritual and mental aspects of existence can be expanded and multiplied, then by analogy the material aspects must also be capable of such change, provided the proper method is understood. A fundamental principle asserts that what is true in the higher realms is also true in the lower. If alchemy operates as a spiritual reality, it must also have a material counterpart. If transformation occurs within the universe, it may also occur within humanity, and likewise within plants and minerals. Growth is a universal condition, differing only in manner and scale. Wherever multiplication is possible in one domain, it must be possible in all, for the higher and lower correspond with one another. Yet just as the path to the refinement of the soul is concealed within sacred traditions, so too are the methods for transforming metals kept hidden, lest they be misused. To understand the growth of metals, one must first grasp their inner nature. All things, metals, stones, plants, animals, and even universes, are said to originate from seeds already present within the substance of existence. Just as the seed of a human exists before birth, and the seed of a plant endures beyond the life of the plant itself, so the seeds of both spiritual and material gold are ever present. Metals are believed to develop over vast periods, receiving vitality from the sun, growing in ways subtle and unseen, much like living forms. All things grow, though their modes of growth vary according to their nature and scale. One of the central axioms declares that within everything lies the seed of everything else. Although such seeds may remain dormant for long durations or develop with extreme slowness, their presence is universal. Each grain of sand is said to contain not only the potential for metals and precious stones, but also the seeds of celestial bodies. Just as the entirety of the universe is reflected in the nature of a human being, so within even the smallest particle of matter are concealed all aspects of the cosmos in seed form. These minute essences, far beyond the reach of ordinary perception, remain hidden until the moment appointed for their expression, existing in a state that defies recognition and understanding. Two principal methods are described by which growth may be achieved. The first belongs to nature, which is portrayed as a perpetual alchemist accomplishing what appears impossible. The second belongs to art, through which results may be attained in a comparatively brief period that would require nature immense stretches of time to accomplish. The true philosopher, seeking the completion of the great work, shapes his actions in harmony with the laws of nature, understanding that the art of alchemy is essentially an imitation of natural processes, though greatly accelerated by the use of certain hidden principles. Nature performs her transformations either through vast extension or through concentrated intensity. Her extensive method may be seen in the gradual transformation of carbon into diamond, a process requiring immense ages of pressure and change. The intensive method is represented by art, which serves as a faithful companion to nature, assisting rather than opposing her. In this cooperation, art does not demand what nature refuses, nor does nature deny what art is able to perfect. Instead, nature yields to the skilled practitioner, who aids her processes through knowledge and effort. Through such art, the seed existing within the essence of a stone may be stimulated so powerfully that a diamond could arise from it in a very short time. This is possible because the seed of the diamond is believed to exist within all substances such as marble, granite, and sand. Without this inner seed, no such transformation could occur. Since this potential is universal, it is taught that a diamond may be brought forth from any material, though in some substances the process is easier because their inner elements are already more fully prepared. In a similar way, some individuals are more readily instructed in wisdom because they possess an inner foundation, while in others the capacity remains undeveloped. Alchemy, therefore, is understood as the art of bringing something to its fullest expression with the greatest speed possible. While nature may or may not achieve her ends due to the conflicting actions of elements, art ensures completion by overcoming the limitations of time and the disruptive influences within matter. In a historical summary, the aims pursued by alchemists are described as an attempt to reproduce within the laboratory the processes carried out by nature within the depths of the earth. Their efforts were directed towards several principal objectives. Among these was the preparation of a substance known as the elixir, also called the magisterium, the medicine, or the philosopher's stone, believed to possess the power to transform base metals into gold and silver, as well as to accomplish other extraordinary effects. Another objective was the creation of artificial living beings, often referred to as homunculi, about which many accounts were recorded, though their credibility has been questioned. For example, there is a story of Albert the Great, also known as Albertus Magnus, a member of the Dominican order, who is known as a teacher of St. Thomas Aquinas in philosophy and alchemical thought. Having become regarded as a master of the occult sciences, Albertus Magnus is said to have undertaken the construction of an automaton endowed with speech and reasoning. This artificial being, known as an android, was composed of metals and unknown substances selected according to astrological principles and animated through magical formulas and invocations. The work reportedly required more than 30 years of labor. St. Thomas Aquinas, believing the creation to be diabolical in nature, destroyed it, thereby ending the long effort invested in it. Alchemists also sought the discovery of a universal solvent, a substance capable of dissolving all other materials placed within it. Another goal was the restoration of a plant from its ashes, a process suggesting the possibility of reviving life itself. In addition, they pursued a mysterious substance described as the spirit of the world, believed to hold various powers, including the ability to dissolve gold. The extraction of the quintessence, or the pure active principle within all substances, was another aim, as was the preparation of a form of liquid gold, regarded as a perfect remedy due to the belief that gold, being perfect in itself, could impart perfection to the human body. Within alchemical philosophy, 3 primary symbolic substances are described: mercury, sulfur, and salt. To these is added a 4th, more elusive principle known as azoth, regarded as a universal life force. Concerning the first 3, It is explained that they are not to be confused with their ordinary physical counterparts obtained from the earth or prepared by common means. Instead, each represents a deeper philosophical essence. Each of these substances possesses a threefold nature, for within each one are contained the other two according to a hidden principle known to the wise. Thus, the substance called salt is in reality composed of salt, sulfur, and mercury, though salt itself predominates within it. In the same way, mercury contains all three, with mercury as its dominant aspect, and sulfur likewise embodies the same triad, with sulfur prevailing. From this understanding arises a structure of 9 aspects formed from 3 within 3, and when united with Azoth, the total becomes 10, symbolizing a sacred completeness. The nature of Azoth has been the subject of much interpretation. Some have regarded it as an invisible and eternal fire, others as a force akin to electricity, and still others as a form of magnetism. In more philosophical interpretations, it is described as a subtle and luminous medium permeating all existence. It is associated with a primordial substance that originates beyond the visible universe. Surrounding the cosmos is conceived a sphere of stars, and beyond this lies a higher realm described as a divine, fiery water, the first emanation of the creative word. This essence, both fiery and fluid, is said to divide into 2 aspects, one becoming the solar principle and the other the lunar. This primal substance is identified with universal Mercury and with Azoth itself, representing the boundless spirit of life. From this source flows a living current, passing through a state likened to a subtle vapor and dividing into 4 streams, corresponding to the fundamental elements. Within this vaporous condition exists a spiritual substance described as the primordial earth, from which the original form of humanity was shaped. This form is not physical, but exists as a hidden and subtle body that awaits eventual manifestation. Elsewhere, it is suggested that the material universe did not originally exist, but came into being as the result of a disruption in this primordial state. According to this view, a being associated with rebellion attempted to manipulate the divine essence and failed, causing it to become obscured. The creation of the universe is thus interpreted as a process intended to restore and liberate this essence from its obscured condition. Such interpretations reveal that early philosophers often regarded sacred texts as containing concealed teachings related to alchemical processes. For this reason, it is considered essential not to interpret these writings literally, as their meanings are veiled beneath layers of symbolism. Those who accept them only at face value are said to miss their deeper significance. Writers on the subject have emphasized that alchemists deliberately concealed their knowledge through allegory, fable, and symbolic language. Their intent was to obscure their teachings beneath images and narratives that appear to diverge in many directions but ultimately converge upon a single central truth. This method ensured that only those prepared to understand could penetrate beyond the surface. An example of such symbolic interpretation is found in a parable concerning King Solomon, in which his wives, concubines, and virgins are said to represent different forms of knowledge. The wives are understood to symbolize the arts, the concubines the sciences, and the virgins the hidden and undisclosed secrets of nature. When these virgins are compelled to remove their veils, it signifies that through wisdom, the concealed aspects of knowledge are revealed to the philosopher. To those lacking insight, however, only the outer appearance remains visible, while the deeper truths continue to be hidden behind a symbolic veil. It is taught that the alchemist must carry on his work within 4 distinct worlds at the same time if the great work is to be completed. To make clear the relationships among these realms, a system of correspondences is presented, showing how the 3 fundamental principles are reflected across each level of existence. The early practitioners of alchemical symbolism did not establish fixed meanings for their symbols or consistent terminology, and as a result, understanding their writings requires both familiarity and intuitive insight. In particular, distinctions between spirit and soul were not always clearly defined, although sacred teachings indicate that spirit is indestructible while the soul is subject to change and dissolution. The soul is described as capable of perishing, whereas the spirit ultimately returns to its divine source, demonstrating that the two are not identical. A pattern of analogy emerges when considering the four worlds. In the highest realm, that of the divine, the triune principle is expressed as Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. In the human realm, these correspond to spirit, soul, and body. Within the elemental world, they are represented as air, fire, and water, while in the realm of substances they appear as mercury, sulfur, and salt. Variations in interpretation occur among different writers, some placing fire before air or assigning sulfur before mercury, yet these differences do not alter the underlying structure. Another arrangement, associated with Paracelsus and influenced by classical philosophy, omits the explicit divine triad and instead aligns the human, elemental, and chemical levels. In this form, the human aspect remains spirit, soul, and body. The elements are arranged as air, water, and earth, and the corresponding substances are sulfur, mercury, and salt. Though the order shifts, the principle of correspondence remains intact. From these comparisons, it becomes evident that the alchemical substances of salt, sulfur, and mercury were never intended to signify only physical materials. They were also symbols of deeper realities, representing invisible and spiritual principles operating within the divine, within humanity, and throughout the universe. When these three principles are considered across the four worlds, their total expression forms a sacred number associated with completeness and foundation. This number is reflected in symbolic traditions that describe the structure of a sacred city as resting upon 12 foundational stones. In a related philosophical idea, it is asserted that a geometric figure with 12 faces represents the structural basis of the universe itself. Such concepts suggest a connection between the pattern of three expressed through four and other symbolic systems that describe reality in terms of fourfold structures composed of triple aspects. This recurring relationship between unity, multiplicity, and correspondence serves as a key to understanding the deeper meaning concealed within alchemical teachings. A symbolic arrangement presents how the three principles, salt, sulfur, and mercury, extend their search through the four directions of creation. Each direction is associated with a network of correspondences that reveal the unity underlying diverse expressions of existence. The eastern quarter aligns with Aquarius, the figure of man among the cherubic forms, the season of spring, the stage of childhood, the beginning marked as birth, the principle of spirit within human constitution, and the element of air. The southern quarter corresponds to Leo, the lion, the fullness of summer, the vigor of youth, the phase of growth, the aspect of soul, and the element of fire. The western quarter is linked with Scorpio, the eagle, the season of autumn, the condition of maturity, the culmination of development, the faculty of mind, and the element of water. The northern quarter relates to Taurus, the bull, the stillness of winter, the period of age, the stage of decline, the physical body, and the element of earth. Through these layered correspondences, the fourfold structure of the world is revealed as a unified system in which every part reflects every other. Another set of relationships connects the three alchemical substances with symbols familiar within certain traditions. The three lights are described as stellar fire, solar fire, and lunar fire. These correspond to three central figures, Hiram, Solomon, and Hiram of Tyre, though in some interpretations the order of the first two is reversed. The same triad appears in geometric form as the sphere, the pyramid, and the cube, and again as mercury, sulfur, and salt. These repeated patterns emphasize that the substances represent not merely physical materials, but universal principles expressed in many symbolic forms. Within alchemical teaching appears once more the theme of the universal mystery of death and renewal. Just as sacred narratives describe figures who suffer death and transformation, whether upon a cross, at a temple gate, beside a river, or within a hidden chamber, alchemy declares that transformation cannot occur unless the elements themselves first undergo dissolution. The processes described in alchemical practice mirror those found in the lives of great teachers and in the mythologies of many cultures. The teaching that one must be born again to perceive higher truth finds its parallel in the alchemical assertion that putrefaction is necessary before the great work can be fulfilled. The same principle operates within the individual, where something must undergo symbolic death and decay in order to rise again, renewed and purified. Within the vessel of transformation, a prepared substance, when subjected to proper conditions over time, develops into a red elixir known as a universal medicine. This substance appears as a luminous, fiery liquid and passes through a series of changing colors during its development, at one stage displaying a brilliance reminiscent of a peacock's shifting hues. If its power is intensified beyond the proper limit, the vessel containing it may shatter, and the substance itself may vanish, for it surpasses the capacity of ordinary matter to contain it. In its perfected state, it is no longer merely material but partakes of a higher essence, capable of penetrating and transforming other substances. When correctly prepared, it acts as a universal solvent, dissolving metals and converting them through successive stages into a refined and perfected condition. Warnings are given concerning the excessive intensification of this substance. It is said that its development reaches completion after a certain number of cycles, beyond which no further refinement is possible. At that point, even a slight application of heat causes it to flow with such subtlety that it escapes all confinement, passing through solid barriers as though they offered no resistance. In describing the stages required for producing the hermetic medicine, different systems present varying numbers of processes. Some describe a smaller sequence, while others expand the progression into 12 distinct stages, each associated with a sign of the zodiac. These stages begin with calcination under Aries, followed by congelation under Taurus, fixation under Gemini, and dissolution under Cancer. They continue with digestion under Leo, distillation under Virgo, sublimation under Libra, and separation under Scorpio. The final stages include incineration under Sagittarius, fermentation under Capricorn, multiplication under Aquarius, and projection under Pisces. This sequence suggests a profound symbolic journey, reflecting a cycle of transformation that parallels other esoteric traditions. The 12 stages recall systems of initiation in which knowledge is gradually unfolded through successive degrees. In this context, the process of transformation is likened to a passage through celestial realms, where each phase contributes to the discovery of a hidden essence. The progression also mirrors symbolic accounts of seekers sent forth to recover a lost principle, often identified with a universal and life-giving force. Through these correspondences, the alchemical process is revealed as both a physical and a spiritual journey, guided by patterns that unite the structure of the cosmos with the transformation of matter and consciousness. According to Solomon Trismosin, the path by which matter advances toward perfection is divided into 22 stages, each illustrated by a symbolic image. A significant relationship is observed between these 22 emblems, the major cards of the tarot, and the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, all of which share a common structure and meaning. When properly understood, the tarot itself is revealed as an alchemical formula expressed through symbolic imagery. Supporting the view that King Solomon possessed knowledge of alchemy, it has been suggested that the Song of Solomon, often misunderstood, is in fact an allegorical description of alchemical processes. In this interpretation, the Dark Maid of Jerusalem represents not a literal figure but a substance known to the sages. The sequence of the text corresponds to stages such as the identification of the subject, the flowering of the art, purification, the action of fire, putrefaction, sublimation, distillation, the transformation of colors, fixation, multiplication, and the final projection. It is further stated that even a minute portion of the Philosopher's Stone, when placed upon water, initiates a process that symbolically reenacts the formation of the universe. The substance begins to move across the surface like a living force, forming a miniature cosmos that rises and passes through stages of development before eventually dissolving back into dust. In addition to its application to metals, the alchemical art is also said to extend to minerals, enabling the transformation of common stones into precious gems or the improvement of those of lesser quality. Yet it is emphasized that the pursuit of gold often leads to misunderstanding, as many interpret alchemy in purely material terms. The true philosopher's gold, the philosopher's stone, and the philosopher's medicine are understood to exist simultaneously within multiple realms of existence, and their realization depends upon the successful application of a unified process across all of them. One essential component of this process resides within the nature of the practitioner, and without it no combination of substances will yield the desired result. For this reason, even the most careful imitation of alchemical procedures by those lacking inner preparation fails to reproduce the achievements attributed to earlier practitioners. The missing element is a subtle force arising from the transformed and enlightened state of the alchemist himself. This idea is reinforced by those who have studied the subject in depth, who caution that alchemical instructions, though both symbolic and literal, cannot be successfully applied without the necessary inner qualifications. The practitioner must possess a certain magnetic and cohesive power within his own nature, enabling him to attract and unify subtle elements that are otherwise inaccessible. Without this capacity, the effort results only in wasted time and resources. In examining alchemical formulas, it is therefore necessary to understand that their successful application depends upon the condition of the individual who employs them. If two individuals were to perform identical operations with the same materials and methods, the one who has attained inner illumination would achieve the intended transformation, while the other would not. This demonstrates that the greater transformation must first occur within the soul before the lesser transformation can take place in matter. Though this principle is consistently present, it is carefully concealed within symbolic language and imagery. It is taught that without a form of inner rebirth, the great work cannot be accomplished. The deeper aspect of this mystery, involving the hidden life principle within the human being, is not openly explained, for it is held that each seeker must discover it through personal realization rather than instruction.